You ever hear someone say, "Oh, I'm just getting older. My brain's slowing down?" What if I told you? Sometimes, that's not age at all. I've seen it in my patients. A sharp, witty man in his 60s, still working, still driving, still telling the best stories in the room. And yet, in his brain, something had already begun, something he couldn't feel. See, dementia doesn't knock on your door one morning and announce itself. It slips in quietly, almost politely. It can live in your brain for years before you notice a single thing. The scary part? By the time most people spot the first symptom, the changes inside have been building for a decade. So today, I want to take you inside the brain, to the exact moment dementia begins. And once you see it, you'll never think about forgetfulness the same way again. Inside your brain, there's a vast network, billions of nerve cells talking to each other like a city lit up at night. Every thought, every memory, every face you recognize depends on those tiny electrical conversations. In the earliest stage of dementia, those conversations start getting interrupted, not in big, obvious ways, but in whispers. Proteins that should be cleared away after use begin to pile up between cells, like clutter in the streets. Connections that were once lightning fast start to slow, then flicker. But here's the thing, you don't feel pain when it happens. You don't get a fever or a warning light. You can still laugh at a joke, still find your keys, still remember your grocery list. It's like the first crack in a sidewalk, so small, you can walk over it for years. Until one day, it's wide enough to trip you. That's the moment dementia is already in motion, even if life still feels perfectly normal. There's a point, a quiet one, where the brain starts crossing from healthy forgetfulness into something more serious. It doesn't look like the movies. No dramatic memory loss overnight. Instead, it's tiny changes. A word you've used your whole life just won't come to you mid-sentence. A shortcut you've driven for 20 years suddenly feels unfamiliar. In the hippocampus, the brain's memory hub, cells are working harder just to keep up. Think of it like your phone running too many apps at once. It still works, but it overheats, drains faster, and lags. This is when the brain starts compensating. Other regions pick up the slack, and you might feel a little more tired after simple tasks, or need more reminders than before. Most people wave it off, "Oh, I'm just distracted." But inside, this is a tipping point. And once crossed, the changes tend to accelerate quietly. You don't need medical equipment to notice the first signs. You just need to pay attention, not to the big changes, but to the ones that slip through unnoticed. Maybe it's your coffee cup sitting in the microwave for hours, because you reheated it and forgot. Maybe it's standing in the middle of the hallway, wondering why you walked there in the first place. These are not always dementia, sometimes, they're just distractions or stress. But here's the thing, when they start happening more often, and they feel different from your usual senior moments, that's when it's worth listening closer. In the brain, these moments often trace back to tiny disruptions in how nerve cells pass messages to each other. It's like static in a phone call, most of the conversation gets through, but pieces are missing. And those missing pieces are what make you lose the thread in daily life. If you've ever brushed it off, you're not alone. Most seniors do, until someone else points it out. The brain is clever, sometimes too clever for its own good. When one pathway starts to weaken, it quietly reroutes the signal through another route. On the outside, you still function. On the inside, the system is working harder than it should. It's like driving on a highway with a closed lane. You can still get to your destination, but every detour adds more strain, and one day, traffic might stop altogether. This compensation phase can last months, even years. That's why so many seniors tell me, "I felt fine. Until I didn't." During this stage, you may notice only the smallest shifts, words sitting at the tip of your tongue, simple instructions feeling a bit more complicated, or suddenly needing to double-check things you've done 1,000 times before. It's not because you're careless. It's because the brain is quietly working around a problem you can't yet see. I can't tell you how many times a family member has said to me, "We just thought it was normal aging." But here's the truth, normal aging might slow recall, yet it doesn't erase familiar names, doesn't make someone get lost in a place they've lived for decades, and it doesn't suddenly make simple decisions overwhelming. It's those small but out-of-place moments that matter most. Like when your spouse forgets the route to the grocery store you've gone to together every Saturday for 20 years. Or when your father puts the remote in the freezer and then laughs it off as a funny mistake. These aren't just quirks. They're signals. And the danger is in brushing them aside, thinking they'll pass or that the person is just tired. Because dementia doesn't knock loudly at the door, it slips in quietly, leaving little clues in the daily routine, waiting for someone to notice. The earlier you connect the dots, the more options you have to slow the progression and protect what matters most: independence, memory, and identity. You know, inside your brain, there's this massive network of tiny messengers called neurons. They talk to each other so fast, it's like a city's freeway system with zero traffic. But when dementia starts, something small but dangerous begins to happen. Little protein clumps, amyloid and tau, start showing up where they don't belong. Think of them like roadblocks on your busiest streets. At first, you barely notice. Maybe you take a second longer to answer a question. Maybe you forget a word you've used your whole life. The brain just takes a detour. But those detours, they're slower. And over time, more roadblocks pop up. Here's the part most people don't realize: this can be going on for years before you see any big, obvious symptom. That's why those small, easy-to-miss moments we talked about earlier are actually the brain's first cry for help. Here's the thing about the brain: once those roadblocks start forming, you can't just wish them away. But you can slow them down. Sometimes. You can even reroute traffic so well that life keeps moving smoothly for years. The earlier you step in, the more options you have. It's like catching a tiny leak in your roof before the rain comes. A quick patch today saves you from replacing the whole ceiling tomorrow. That's why noticing those little slips in memory, those small changes in mood or judgment, isn't about panic. It's about opening a window of time where the brain can still fight back. And here's where most seniors, and their families, make the biggest mistake: they wait. They watch. They hope it's just aging. Meanwhile, the brain is quietly losing ground. The sooner you act, the more of you get to keep. I once had a patient named Evelyn, 72, living just outside of Denver. Her daughter brought her in because she had started misplacing her wallet 3 times in 1 week. Not losing it, just putting it in the freezer, or in the laundry basket. Now, that might sound like just a funny mix-up, but Evelyn's daughter knew it wasn't something she'd ever done before. We ran a few simple memory tests and caught the earliest stage of cognitive decline. Here's the good news: because we caught it early, we built her a daily brain care plan, structured sleep, specific memory exercises, and diet changes to protect blood flow. Within months, her symptoms stopped progressing. She still drives. She still gardens. And she still laughs when she tells the freezer story, because she knows she's winning her fight. I've seen this more than once. The pattern is always the same: someone notices, they speak up, they act quickly. And that action buys them years of clarity. If you've been nodding along because something here feels familiar, don't brush it off. Don't tell yourself, "It's just age," or "It only happened once." Dementia doesn't usually knock on the door loudly. It slips in quietly, through moments so small you can convince yourself they're nothing. Forgetting a conversation, getting lost on a familiar route, mixing up words that used to come easily, those are your brain's way of waving a flag. Here's what you can do today. First, write it down. Any unusual memory lapse, confusion, or mood shift, put it on paper. Patterns matter. Second, share it with someone you trust. A spouse, an adult child, or even a close friend. Third, book a simple cognitive screening. It's quick, painless, and it can open the door to early help. I tell my patients this all the time: acting now doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're giving your brain a chance to keep you. If you've made it this far, you're already doing something powerful. You're paying attention. Every day, I see people who waited too long. They thought they were fine until the small slips became mountains they couldn't climb back over. You don't have to let that happen. Your brain is the keeper of your stories, your voice, your laughter. It's worth protecting, one small choice at a time. If you are watching because you're worried about someone, share this with them. If you've recognized even one sign in yourself, leave a simple comment: I'm taking care of my brain. That way, you're making a promise, not just to me, but to yourself. And remember, you're not alone in this. We're building a community where early action is the greatest act of love you can give yourself and the people who matter most.